Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're just going to give everybody a couple minutes here to join in and make sure they're all situated. While waiting, we're going to go ahead and get started with a poll, just to get everybody familiar with what's going on. Awesome. So we'll just probably another minute, and then we'll close the poll, and then we'll get started. Well, that's fantastic. So it looks like we have a lot of people here today that are pretty new to FSL. So this should be pretty informative for everybody. Alrighty, so thanks everyone for coming today to this month's Circle of Success webinar. My name is Abby Malvastuda, and I'm going to be your host today. I'm a Customer Success Manager over here at Prodly. Also on the line, we have our friend Zach Hower. Zach, go ahead and say hey and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm Zach. I'm a Salesforce admin at Quest Software. Currently using Prodly and have used it to implement FSL.
Cool beans. And we also have Derek Black, the one and only. So Derek, go ahead and say hey.
Hi, I'm Derek. I'm Director of Customer Success here at Prodly, and helping people like Zach do things. Zach is also on go live date of a big CPQ project too, and just sitting here calmly. Well, big things that await him that he's going to be using Prodly for later today too.
Yes, absolutely.
Big day all around for Zach. All right, so let's start with a little housekeeping. As you saw, we've got some polls that are be coming up throughout the presentation, so feel free to participate in those. As far as questions go, we do have a questions check box that's going to be open at all times. You should be able to see that on your screen, indicated by that orange arrow there. Feel free to raise your hand, and if you wanted to ask any questions in more detail, we can certainly help you out with that. Otherwise, we are going to reserve some of these questions for the end of the presentation. Okay. So I guess, Zach, what would you consider to be some of the key takeaways from today's webinar for our audience?
Some of the key takeaways would be, why it's important to have a DevOps process. Why really you should be using a pipeline to manage your and implement your Field Service Lightning, and how Prodly can make that a lot easier for you.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about how you got started with FSL and Prodly.
So I'd never even heard of FSL before I started at my current company, Quest Software. And I inherited this project halfway through. It was just a complete mess. I didn't know really what was already started and what wasn't started, how it had, what was put in and what order was put in, and And that's where like Prodly really came into play for me, because Prodly already had, you know, all the data templates for me so that I can get the basic structure of how FSL works. That was my
Right.
trial by fire.
Why not do them both at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So now that you're live, though, what does the ongoing maintenance of that look like? What kind of change requests are you getting?
We get two types of change requests. Either it's a user/service resource type management request, or it's a process change request. So, you know, if it's a user type request, usually our operations admin team can handle that, and makes it a lot easier. And then if it's, you know, some type of process change or business change, then it will come to me.
Awesome. So as far as the maintenance goes, like, what does that look like for you?
For maintenance, it's typically, you know, we'll receive the requests, and we use our DevOps process to test it, validate it, and once we do that, we have weekly releases, and we'll push those changes at that time, you know, making sure that business is aware of the changes that are coming.
Right on. So how do you feel Prodly delivers value for Quest within that?
Oh man, it helps so much with the operations admin team, right? Especially if we have someone new coming on, I don't have to completely train them on FSL and get them to understand the process, you know, at least not initially, right? I can get them, you know, adding value right away by just showing them how to use deployment plans and data sets, because they don't necessarily need to know, you know, how scheduling policies work or how it works for our company right now. But as long as they know how to, you know, deploy them, and the changes that we make, then, you know, they add value to the team right away.
Sweet deal. So I guess we know that Prodly is not the only tool in the market for data management and DevOps. So what are some of your favorite features that made Prodly stand out from the crowd?
The VEID is really great, right? Because with FSL, you know, it's a constantly changing thing. You have service resources constantly being activated and inactivated, skills being added, changed, removed, territories being modified, things like that. And, you know, all those things go into play when you're testing out a new process or a change to something. So having Prodly there to ensure that, you know, all of our sandboxes are synced up and have the correct and most up-to-date data allows us to, you know, avoid some of those easy pitfalls you might run into, because, you know, you did all your testing against a incorrect data set.
Right, right, good to know. So our next poll is ready. So let's go ahead and get that up on the screen. Give you guys a couple of minutes to take a look at that and answer it.
Yeah, I think we only had one customer live on FSL from our initial poll, so this might be a quick poll.
Sure thing.
No, we got some more responses.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, maybe another minute then, and then we'll close it off and be moving on. All right. Okay, so it looks like we've got a lot of people testing changes in Sandbox. All right. Good to know. So here we're at, let's see. So Zach, can you briefly explain the release path that you use and where it probably fits within that?
Yeah, so this slide right here shows the two pipelines that we leverage, right? So the top pipeline right here is essentially our project pipeline. So anything that is, we're going to, be planning out and architecting, collecting business requirements, we'll follow this whole process, right? So we'll have, a bunch of dev sandboxes, dev pro sandboxes that people are working in, and they'll, we have our QA and our UAT process that will push up the pipeline and leverage Prodly to do that. And then for the kind of like the ad hoc changes and requests that we receive, we'll follow, the bottom pipeline here, make those changes in the, the Dev Pro sandbox and test it in hotfix, which is a full sandbox. QA, UAT, staging, and hotfix are all full sandboxes. And then we can push to production from there.
All right, right on. So I guess what advice do you have for getting everyone who is already configuring Salesforce, especially devs, admins, VAs, that sort of thing, to follow this sort of a release path?
I guess I would say, it's difficult to do it because it seems like the the longer choice, right? It takes much more time to implement that type of process, but the added benefit is you really save time on the back end and you save the company a lot of money by just reducing errors, right? So, I always strongly urge people to, have a DevOps process and follow it and document and communicate it often, because it's just so beneficial to you and your team and everyone at the company, because you're not always the only person working on it. Especially if you're someone new coming into an org, you really appreciate that documentation. So it makes your world a lot easier as well.
Right, right. So, in the short term, it might be a pain in the butt to get started, but in the long term, it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So on this slide, we're basically just looking at, changes that you'd be making in production versus changes that you'd be making in Sandbox. So one of the great things about FSL is it's really designed to enable business units to take more direct ownership over managing field service. On the flip side, though, it looks like business units might not be as familiar with Salesforce governance. So how do you assess what types of changes are okay to make in prod?
Basically, try to follow, Salesforce best practices, right? If it's user management things, it's okay to do it directly in prod, right? But if you're making changes to anything that will impact the business process, any logic that could change, or really anything that may take your end users by surprise, right? If you just start adding in new skills, your end users start seeing those, and the next thing you know, that your dispatchers are getting all kinds of escalated cases because they can't find any resources to assign to. So really, I keep user management primarily in production, and everything else at the very least starts from the hotfix pipeline, or preferably the project pipeline.
Okay.
It
Do
seems like
you,
people responded in the poll that they are basically manually moving work from like a sandbox to production. Would you ever have an instance where you would do that?
Well, because it's a Salesforce managed package, there's a lot of things that you can't move. system settings wise with change sets. So if your only option is change sets, I could see why that would be the case. My recommendation would be that, if you have to do that, right, have planned, weekend releases where you have time to make those manual changes and then test them live in production.
For like wholesale, large changes like adding a new service territory or something like that, you would typically not remake that kind of manually in production, right?
Oh yeah, that's 100% Prodly. There's no reason for me to try and manually create it, especially because that impacts how resources are located when you're creating service appointments and trying to find available resources. So like I said, anything that will impact your business process, I do everything I can to stage it and deploy it automatically or automated.
Okay.
So I guess to kind of flip the script on that then, do you think there's any certain types of changes that you would never make in prod?
I would never touch anything that is related to my scheduling policy in prod. Depending on how many teams you have using it, you can only have one default scheduling policy. So no matter, even if you have more than one, business unit that's using it, it's going to default to that one. So you might make a change to help fix a problem with one business unit and inadvertently just completely derail another business unit, and that's money going out the door in a heartbeat.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess kind of building off the last couple of slides then, how do you explain or how would you coach business users or even just those who are less familiar with release management best practices on the importance of following these types of governance strategies?
So ultimately, depending on what your job is, ultimately your goal is to really save your company money, right? Because this is typically a service-based product, right? So the more efficient you can be, the more money you're going to save your company. So when I look at it, I take every issue, change, problem that needs to occur, and I try to break it down in dollar value to how will this change impact every person down the chain, right? So if I'm making in production changes, right, and I make a change to my scheduling policy, and then I log off for the day, right, and we're an international company, so all of EMEA for 4 hours until they get a hold of me can't schedule people, right? That's tens of thousands of dollars down the drain. So that's why release management is important.
Right. Yeah, right on. So when you started with Prodly, you were using our maintain templates. Were they helpful to you? How do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, I would say the template was as helpful to me as just doing the trailheads were, because you could do the trailheads, but really that's still only going to cover 30%, 40% of what FSL really is capable of doing, right? Like I said, I kind of inherited this project, and I had never used FSL before, so it was really just me learning the entire platform, right? And how everything is associated to each other, right? How everything flows. So when it came time to actually start promoting it from a dev sandbox up to partial and full sandboxes, these templates help me understand how each object and its records needed to be created, which inherently helped me understand in a better sense how they're all working together.
Right. So how do you use the templates now? Like, what's your kind of, I guess, day-to-day use of them?
So essentially two different ways we use it. So we'll have a deployment plan with all the using the template and the steps, and obviously it's already customized, and so that's pretty much how we update keep all of our sandboxes updated. I mentioned earlier about the importance of keeping as close to live production data as possible in all your sandboxes, and like the data sets just make that so much easier. And then just having them in case maybe I'm training someone who's more junior, I can use that to help coach them and train them on really when you're doing this, you need, if you're deploying a territory, right, make sure that you have the right time zones with it and operating hours and all that, right? Because if you just try to go to a data set and do a territory, service territory, and you don't bring over child records, right, or parent records or anything like that, you're not doing anything, right? You're just creating a single record somewhere.
Right, right. Oh, that's fantastic. So out of curiosity, have you expanded the use of Prodly to any other parts of Salesforce? Are you using Prodly for other application templates like B2B commerce?
We use it for CPQ. We're still in the process of building out our B2B commerce project. So I haven't had the luxury of using it for that, but I'm really happy. Derek mentioned earlier, today's the start of our go live for CPQ, and this is our second phase, and the first phase, we ended up breaking everything out into pieces. We ended up having, I think, 4 or 5 deployment plans, and that was prior to me joining the company. And one of my goals was, when we were, doing, planning and practicing our go live deployment, was to have like a one-stop, one click and get all of our CPQ schema in there right away, right? Not having to, deploy one deployment plan and then wait and check any errors, right? And that's where we're at. We have one single deployment plan. It's going to deploy our products, our product hierarchy, all of our price rules, product rules, just everything. And it's essentially a job that would take 3 or 4 admins and developers, and we're gonna have one person click deploy.
Sounds like I gotta get you one of those big foam fingers that says Prodly on it.
Yeah.
So, well, how would you, I guess, advise someone who's looking to advocate for a tool like Prodly to their management team?
Going back to what I said about money, right? Just start trying to break things down in a dollar sense, right? Not just in the sense of, oh, it costs X to purchase Prodly, right? But also, how much it costs for every time there's a mistake, right? Everyone's had those times where you made a change, or someone on your team made a change, and then all of a sudden something broke and you had to like scramble to fix it or roll it back or something like that, right? And Prodly, greatly reduces, the chances that those things happen. And it's so easy for, to quantify the benefit of not having those mistakes.
Cool. So you see this mostly as like a governance and risk management tool, not necessarily just like a time saving type of thing.
Yeah, time saving is, it definitely does that, right? But to me, that actually is a much smaller save than, just error management, right? Just spending day after day, or hours here and there all year long fixing this and fixing that, where you know, having Prodly, you just set it and forget it and deploy it.
Right. So using Prodly as part of your like day-to-day governance strategy is great, and the time-saving aspect of it is more just a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys, we've got a pop quiz. Just kidding. So we've got our next poll that we're going to put up here for you. So we'll wait a minute on that. Take a look at this. Well, that was quick. Look at that. Everyone's still awake.
Someone's not convinced, Zach.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
2 people.
There we go. Looks like we might have to move forward with that foam finger then.
Yeah, if there are
There we
any
go.
questions, feel free to ask either the questions panel, or you can raise your hand and we can unmute you. I don't know, we're about at the end of this, so you might want to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, certainly. So if you guys have questions, feel free to just put it in the questions box. And then we can kind of start to strategize how to get those answered for you. Okay, so at this point, like we said, go ahead and utilize the questions box. If you want to raise your hand to ask a question, absolutely. So any questions for Derek or Zach? And then while waiting on that, a couple things for you. We do have an ebook out, The Essential Guide to Reference Data Management. Feel free to download your copy using that link, especially if you felt that today was helpful. This should be great for you guys. It actually goes into detail on how to manage FSL in general. So here we are. We also have some success program things available for you. If you wanted to, we can actually kind of walk you through with a personalized demo for FSL. If you want to see how it works for your company, feel free to sign up there. We also encourage existing customers to kind of take advantage of our FSL deployment best practices success program. We can kind of walk you through it, like I said. Sign up there in the success community, or you can contact your CSM. Okay, Derek, did we have any questions yet?
No questions have popped up. No one's raised their hand.
Nope. Okay. Alrighty. So finally, we do have more of these success programs planned throughout the rest of the year. September, for example, we've got our Sandbox management. October and November we have listed as well. Derek, did you want to tell us a little bit more about the upcoming Circle of Success programs?
Yeah, sure. So next month, we're going to look to talk about general sandbox management. So kind of recall back to the org diagram that Zach had, talking about how to get the most out of your sandboxes. So, full copy sandbox is very expensive. You kind of want to make sure that you can refresh it as often as possible. And we'll talk about how we can help you achieve that goal, as well as get more out of partial and dev pro sandboxes, or even scratch orgs and developer sandboxes, like your own personal sandboxes. Beyond that, in October, we'll be looking to talk about one of our newer products, AppOps Test, which is regression testing for Salesforce CPQ. In September, we should actually be releasing a lot of new functionality for that product, which currently allows you to test quotes and quote lines in CPQ to make sure that the calculations are correct across those records. We've expanded that into the contracting process too, so you'll be able to test things like content generation, asset subscription generation, and other things that are part of the amendment and renewal cycle. Beyond that, in November, we have yet another big product update that's coming out in September for version control for AppOps release. This will allow you to use GitHub to check in and out data, kind of as you would, any version control for code or metadata. This will allow you to do that with reference data, so you can essentially save an entire version of your FSL implementation or your CPQ implementation check that into GitHub and do merges and branches and use a repository as a source of truth for your configuration rather than an org. So this is, moving up to more kind of developer level control and tools for people that don't really need to know how to code or anything like that.
Right on. Okay, do we have any other questions? Anything else come in? Everyone looks good?
Nope, nothing popped up.
Looks like there's a question.
Oh, here we go.
Is there?
Let's see.
Oh, in the chat. It's from Haley. I actually have to drop off of this, but Abby, if you want to,
Okay.
or Abby or Zach, you want to take this question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, it's a question for Zach. So Zach, what has your experience been in trying to find a tool that has both metadata and data functionality? Do you find that the metadata tools that are claiming to have this ability have enough functionality on the data side to effectively manage your sprints and releases? If not, what has your solution to this challenge been? Ooh, it's a long one.
Yeah, actually, I experienced this exact situation. In my experience, sometimes it's just better to go with the product that specializes in the service you're looking for. Prodly is amazing at data management, and as for your version control, I think I know what product you're talking about, or you're looking at, and I have tried to use a couple version controls products, data management tools, and they always seem to be added on as an afterthought, right? And there's very key things missing, and depending on how complex your implementations are, and how large they are, you really can't afford to have certain features missing. So, and Prodly just covers all bases, for us at least. So that's why we went with Prodly. There's nothing that we need, whether it's CPQ or FSL related or just general out of the box functionality that we can't do with Prodly. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was all encompassing. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions for Zach, so I think we're gonna go ahead and call it. I know we're 4 minutes over, but thanks for sticking around, guys. If you guys need anything else, feel free to contact us. Thanks again, Zach. Good luck with your go live.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great day, everyone.